Welcome to literary and jury charge practice. Let's start with some literary material. And the subject or the title of this article is MD versus DDS. And it's actually written by, I believe he's a legal videographer, Gene Bettler. Ready? Here we go. Court reporters' unique skills and knowledge do not end at the method of recording the deposition. And if the skill of taking the spoken English language to paper in the proper format is not enough, just think of the knowledge base that is required of reporters. Not only do they need to know medical and pharmaceutical terms well enough to distinguish between similar sounding items, but also engineering, forensics, chemistry, construction, banking, etc. As a CLVS, I am confident in my abilities to do my job in a professional manner and in a way that meets all the requirements of the industry. But to think that I could produce a transcript that meets the required standards from that recording is a ludicrous as thinking that a court reporter can take down the testimony and continuously evaluate and adjust the video and audio recordings during a deposition. Around 30 years ago, NCRA recognized video as a new tool in the legal environment. It saw the need to train and certify videographers in the unique requirements of legal videography, and the CLVS program was born. From that time on, the court reporter and the legal videographer have worked together as professionals to produce the best service to our clients possible. So it is always with great respect that I look across the deposition room to my partner, the court reporter. If there is anything else that I can do to make your job easier, please let me know. And to the court reporters of NCRA, thank you for everything you have done for us in the past, such as welcoming us into NCRA and developing the CLVS program. Working together, we not only set today's standards, but continually raise tomorrow's. All right, now let's do a little jury charge practice. And we were working previously on a jury charge with the subject of drainage ditch. So let's carry on with this one for a bit. It's a bit of a challenge. So we'll do a little here. Ready? Outlining at that point into County Ditch number 60 in the town of Fairview in the county of Cook, with a branch from the starting point running northerly to about 1,300 feet north of the west quarter corner of Section 3, Township 111 North, Range 41 West, Marshall Township, with another branch from the starting point running southerly on the west line of the southwest one quarter of said Section 3, Township 111 North, Range 41 West, Marshall Township, a distance of approximately 80 rods, thence southeasterly across the south one half of the southwest one quarter to a point on the south line of said southwest one quarter about 75 rods west from the south corner line of said Section 3, thence generally south across the northwest one quarter of said Section 10 to approximately the center of said Section 10, Township 111 North, range 41 West Marshall Township, thence generally in a westerly direction across the northwest 1/4 of said section 10, thence parallel to the right of the way of the C&N W Railroad, a distance of about 250 rods from the center of said section 10. Okay, we'll stop there. I know it's a bit of a challenge, but it is definitely good number practice. And we will work on that later. Now, let's just start another jury charge. And the subject of this jury charge is burglary. Ready? Here we go. Gentlemen of the jury, Herbert Powers is charged by an indictment returned by the grand jury of this county. One count charges burglary of a dwelling in the nighttime, which is a capital offense. The other count charges grand larceny of a home from a dwelling house. However, only one count will be submitted to you for your consideration, and that is the count charging that he broke into and entered the home of Michael Durant in the nighttime. You can't convict him under both counts. You can only convict him under one count, and that is the count that will be submitted to you for your consideration. Under our system of laws, the defendant is presumed to be innocent. Every defendant that is brought into court before the bar of justice in answer for criminal transgressions is presumed under our fundamental law to be innocent, and that casts the burden upon the state to prove him guilty by the testimony beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. Now you have heard the testimony. You saw the witnesses as they gave their testimony. You had an opportunity to observe their demeanor upon the witness stand. Any show of nervousness or lack of it, any hesitation. Did any of them pause and hesitate while giving their answers, or did they speak out forthrightly? The law says that you may even take into consideration the facial expression of the witness as he gives his testimony in determining what weight and credibility you will accord to him. All the circumstances surrounding the witness in the giving of his testimony, the manner of the witness, the demeanor of the witness, everything is to be considered and weighed by you in determining what probative value and force you will accord to his testimony. Now the defendant elected to become a witness for himself and testify in this case, which he had a right to do, and you cannot capriciously cast aside his testimony. The law says that you must take his testimony and consider it along with all the testimony in the case, but that you have a right to take into consideration the fact that he is the defendant and is interested in the result of this trial. There was some evidence in this case that he was previously convicted and served a term in the penitentiary for a crime involving moral turpitude. You may consider that for one purpose only. It goes to his credibility. You may consider that testimony in determining what weight you will accord his testimony, how much credit you will accord to him as he testified in this case. You are the sole judges of the facts in this case. It is your responsibility to resolve the facts and determine what the truth is. As I said, the burden of proof is upon the state to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt. All right, now for some literary practice. This is about networking. Ready? This article, might I say, is not for the person who has no problems in new social situations. If you're naturally gregarious, extroverted, chatty, what have you, this article will seem like a big oh duh. However, for some of us, many more than I would think, the social aspect of conventions is the most intimidating or exhausting. Here are some things that have helped me. When you think I don't know anybody, let me fill you in on a secret, nor does anyone else. It seems like everyone is in a little conversation group but you. It seems like everyone is mingling and having a good time, but I guarantee you most of those people have just met. Yes, there are some of us who have gone to every conference event since Benjamin Franklin discovered cereal ports, but those aren't the majority. Give yourself permission to stand to the side during the Thursday evening reception or the Saturday night party and just observe. Look for loosely knit groups of 2 or 3 groups where they're not gathered in a tight circle but have a circle that's slightly open according to their body language, and introduce yourself. Heck, just say it. I'm new to these things and I don't know anyone. State your name, and I'm a profession from your town. What do you do? That line works with individuals just as well. Lather, rinse, repeat. Where do I sit? It's lunchtime and you don't have someone to sit with. I like to play table roulette. Sit at an empty table that's in the middle of things and see who sits with you. Better yet, join the board and you get a reserved table. Therefore, you don't have to worry. And by the way, if anyone asks you if you want to join them for dinner, say yes. All right, we'll get back to that one. Let's try some more jury charge practice. Ready? Then that calls for the question, what does it take to constitute reasonable doubt? It is not imaginary doubt. It is not a speculative doubt. It is not a fanciful doubt. But the law says that a reasonable doubt is an actual, substantial doubt, a doubt for which you can give a reason. It must be a reasonably substantial doubt. The state doesn't assume the burden of showing beyond all possible doubt. Everything related to human affairs or pertaining to human transaction is susceptible of some doubt. So our Supreme Court has ruled, and the law writers have tried to hit upon a reasonable, fair, sensible definition of a reasonable doubt. They say it is an actual and substantial doubt. Now, if the testimony in this case is such as to create in your minds a bona fide conviction of the guilt of this defendant, then you are convinced beyond all reasonable doubt, and you ought to convict him. On the other hand, if you are not so convinced, it will be your duty to acquit the defendant. As I said before, you are seekers after the truth, and it is for you to find the truth. And when you find it, write it into your verdict and let it speak out. Truth is a fundamental virtue. Banish it from the earth, and you might as well banish the light, because the world would be a desert. The sweetest note would lose its melody, the fairest flower its language, and all nature would be as dead to music as the tongueless grave. truth holds the key that unlocks the door to every virtue and opens the gates to every righteous conception of justice. So you find the truth in this case and write it into your verdict. Now let's see about the rule that our Supreme Court has laid down in reference to this sort of burglary. You know the law says that burglary is the breaking and entering of a dwelling house in this case. What does it take to constitute a breaking? If a man shoves a door to and the burglar comes along and just pushes it open, the law says that is sufficient breaking. That constitutes breaking. If he pulls back a screen and enters, that is a breaking. If he reaches in and opens the latch and opens the door, the law says that is a breaking. We have one case in this state where a man undertook to go into a man's house by going down the chimney. He got stuck in the turn and couldn't go any further, and they had to fish him out. That man was prosecuted, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that was a breaking. If a man raises a window far enough to reach in where he can take something, or if he does take something, the law says that constitutes breaking. There is some testimony here to indicate that at the time this man was arrested, he had possession of the property that was taken from the home. While the possession of goods or other personal property recently stolen does not, as a matter of law in this state, raise the presumption of guilt, yet when the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt establishes a larceny, that this property was stolen, accompanied by a burglary, the unexplained recent possession by the defendant of the stolen property is a fact from which the jury may draw the conclusion that the person in whose possession it was found is the person who committed the burglary. This is a rule laid down by the Supreme Court. In another case, in which a man by the name of Moore was prosecuted and convicted, our Supreme Court laid down this rule in disposing of that case and confirming the conviction. It said that when a breaking is shown by the evidence as it appears, and that at the time of the breaking personal property was stolen, the possession by the defendant of all or part of such stolen property, if unexplained to the satisfaction of the jury, is sufficient upon which to predicate the judgment of guilty. Now that is also the rule in this case. So you have heard the testimony. You saw the witnesses as they gave their testimony. It is for you to determine whether or not this man is guilty. Go back now to our land condemnation that we started, and see if we can finish this jury charge up. Ready? Here we go. You are instructed that the word necessity, as it appears in this question, does not mean absolute necessity, but reasonable necessity or reasonably necessary, but not absolutely imperative. You are instructed that in respect to your answer to this question, the burden of proof is upon the plaintiff, the city of Madison, to satisfy or convince your minds by the preponderance of the credible evidence to a reasonable certainty that the answer to this question should be yes. If the plaintiff has failed to meet the burden of proof in this regard, then it will be your duty to answer no to this question. You are further instructed that in case you are not unanimous in answering this question, there must be at least 10 jurors who agree to the answer contained in your verdict. Should a juror dissent in any instance, the name or names of such jurors or juror should be written in the space for that purpose. You are not to be influenced by any feeling you may have as to which party or parties you would like to have win this lawsuit, nor should you speculate as to whether or not your answer one way or another to this question will benefit either of the parties. Your duty is to try to determine the actual truth in respect to the inquiry contained in this question. You are not concerned with the manner or method of compensation which is to be made to the owners of the land in question in case the land is taken. You are to determine the question of necessity under the evidence and under the instructions of the court. The matter of just compensation is taken care of by other laws. You are the sole judges of the evidence in this case. You must weigh it and ascertain the truth from the facts. In your deliberations in this case, you are to rid yourself of any bias or prejudice whatsoever and consider the case fairly, honestly, and impartially, and in the light of reason and common sense, and determine the facts entirely from the evidence as given to you in court and from the rules of law as I have given them to you. And that will conclude our literary and jury charge practice.